now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Good evening, friends, and Merry Christmas to you all. Thank you for joining in tonight. In keeping with last week's show topics, if you will, we're going to carry on tonight with some more Christmas pictures. And instead of going and pulling pictures from the Telegram like we've been doing of late, I thought it would be neat to go back and look at some actual photographs. And so I spent a good part of the day, a couple hours anyway, going back through Charlie Killebrew's photos online. If you watch the show regularly, you know I've over the years have spent quite a bit of time at that collection of pictures that's at the UNC Wilson Library up at Chapel Hill. And you know, every time I go through those photographs, I see something I didn't see before. Some of the pictures we're going to show you tonight, we've already seen in past shows, but I thought it was just so neat, we thought we'd visit them again. So some of them you'll recognize that you've seen before, others you probably have never seen before. But the general topic tonight will, of course, be Christmas. Before we get into the pictures, though, as I do every week, I kind of made myself some notes here on a little paper that I keep a track of all the pictures we're showing and so forth. And in the upper right-hand corner, I always write the date of today's show. And you're familiar, you hear me say sometimes if you're watching the show on December the 22nd, 2021, you're watching it live. Any other time you're watching the replay. Well, as I was writing that on the paper a little while ago, actually, it dawned on me, and there's a fancy phrase for this, and I don't know what it is. Maybe somebody remembers and call us in and tell us what it is. But if you write today's date, it's the same forward and backwards. I'll give you a minute to get a pencil and piece of paper and write it out if you want, if you don't believe me, but I just did it. 12/22/21 is the same forward as it is backwards. Little neat bit of trivia there. And, you know, the significance of that obviously is we're 3 days away from Christmas. And it seems to have gotten here awfully quick this year. It does. Somebody, the older I get, the quicker Christmas rolls around. Before you know it, it's back up on us again. And, you know, if you've not done your Christmas shopping, you literally got only a couple days left, unless you're going to try to get out there and find something at a drugstore on Christmas Day. That's a possibility. I understand CVS is going to be open Christmas Day, and I'm sure they won't be the only ones. But for the rest of us, and thank goodness I am done. I don't have any more shopping to do, and I'm usually one of those out there on Christmas Eve shopping still. So I won't be out there in the crowd this year. But really, if you've not finished your shopping, you've got a couple days left to go out there and wind up and finish your Christmas list. Okay. You know, we talked about last week's show and the traditions, Christmas traditions especially, and I have some very fond memories of traditions in my family growing up as a child. I was very fortunate I remember all four of my grandparents, both on two on my mother's side, of course, two on my father's side, and we had different traditions at each grandparent's house in addition to the traditions we had in our own home. And so it was neat over the last week to kind of reminisce and think back, and I'm sure you all have your own traditions and your own way of doing Christmas, but you know, there were a few things that came to mind as I was thinking back over my Christmas, particularly as a child. And you know, I think sometimes we're all a little bit guilty of assuming that our life experiences are the same for everyone. And you know, as I got older, I've come to realize that's just not the case. And some of the things that we just assumed everyone else was doing, we were, I won't say the only ones doing it, but certainly not as widespread as I would have thought at the time. Prime example is a shoebox. Now, I don't know how many of you have a memory about a shoebox for Christmas, but of all the Christmases that I had as a child growing up, and the gifts that Santa brought me, and the nice presents I got from family and friends and so forth, the memories of the shoebox is really just very vivid in my mind. Number one, that was the only time of the year that we got in my family oranges and apples and nuts. Besides peanuts, my grandfather was a peanut farmer, so we got peanuts, but Brazil nuts and almonds and English walnuts, those kind of nuts we didn't get throughout the year. In fact, I'm not even sure you could buy them unless you went out of this area. But on Christmas morning, when my sister, my brother, and myself would venture to our Christmas tree in the den, there was always 3 shoe boxes, one for each of us. And in that shoe box, there would be an apple, an orange, perhaps a couple of each actually, and there'd be some nuts, walnuts and Brazil nuts and almonds, and sometimes, the little, not hickory nuts, macadamia nuts. But anyway, those kind of things, and of course there was always some chocolate-covered cherries. To this day, I have a weakness for chocolate-covered cherries. I try not to eat them because I could literally eat a box at one sitting. But and the smells of Christmas still to this day, I can walk past a cedar tree and have those flashbacks of smelling Christmas tree. We grew up, of course, with live trees at my home as a child. For the last several years, we used an artificial tree. Now, since our kids are grown and gone, but the smells and sounds and tastes of Christmas, oh my goodness, the food that my mother, my grandparents would cook. We'd always have a dinner Christmas Eve and then another dinner Christmas Day, and at one grandparents or the other. Just we moved the things around year to year. And it's just looking back and thinking back about all the wonderful memories of Christmas. And it wasn't always about getting toys. You've heard me say, our family, or both sides of my family, were my father's parents were farmers, my mother's parents were mill workers, and so by a lot of people's standards, that means we grew up poor. We didn't consider ourselves poor, and I've heard my parents say neither one of them thought they were poor growing up either. Compared to other folks, though, they were quite poor. But money's not everything, as old saying goes, and so I think having a loving family and traditions that you carry on through year after year mean a lot, and certainly it helps make Christmas something special in addition to whatever gifts you may or may not get during that holiday period. Okay. Enough about memories and traditions. Let's jump right into it, Lee. Our first picture, Charlie Killebrew was world famous for doing topic photograph sessions, and he would pick a topic and he'd get a bunch of pictures, and Christmas was no exception. And in 1949, he kind of rode around and just got a bunch of Christmas pictures, and I just pulled, half a dozen or so from 1949. These are just ones that jumped out at me. There were several more beyond the ones you're going to see here. Many of you may recognize this. This is the Nashville Courthouse, and in 1949, there was a public caroling session that took place out in front of the courthouse. Now, this may have been something that was done every year for a while. I honestly don't remember ever hearing anything about this before. But as you can see, there were quite a few people who came out. I'm not even sure what date this took place. It was in a collection entitled Christmas 1949. And so this picture was the first one that I stumbled across, and I immediately recognized the courthouse. And then I looked at the crowd in front. I thought, wow, that's a lot of folks to show. And it was also subcaptioned Christmas Carolers at Courthouse in Nashville, 1949. So as you can see, there's quite a crowd there. It looks to be perhaps close to 100 people there. And they're all standing around the courthouse and singing Christmas carols. And I just thought that's something that I don't ever recall hearing anything about growing up. I don't know when they stopped doing that, but it made for a nice memory, particularly for those who were part of that in 1949. Okay, Lee, let's go to the next picture then. And this is just the same instance. You see the huge columns there behind the group. This time they've turned around a group of kids anyway. And this from the same collection. This was the Christmas Carols in 1949 from the Nash County Courthouse. And I don't know who coordinated this. I'm sure it's probably some civic group or some group of citizens who wanted to see this kind of event take place, obviously. But it was just neat to me that you could get that many people together in a public place to sing Christmas carols. Venture to say, it'd be hard pressed to do that today. All right, Lee, let's go ahead then to our next one. There was a lot of pictures in this group of shoppers, and this is one I recall seeing before. But a couple things about this jumped out at me. Number one, just to the lady's right, to your left on the screen image there, I believe that's a light pole, and I do not recall that type of light pole on downtown Main Street, Rocky Mount. That is Main Street, obviously. In the background you see People's Bank would be across the railroad track. So this is obviously on the west side of the railroad tracks, facing generally northeast. But I do not remember. This was from 1949, as I said. So at some point thereafter, they took these poles down. But these look to be general, like street lamps you'd see up and down the street. But this fluted, I guess is the term you use there for that pole, that fluted pole. I don't ever recall seeing those. So again, this is from 1949. I don't know how long they used those fluted poles and when they stopped using, pulled them up from downtown Rocky Mount, but that just caught my eye there. And of course the bank building in the background, People's Bank there, as you see behind the lady, and it's from 1949, and she's been shopping obviously and got a couple bags there, and happy smiling face. And 1949, Terrytown Mall had not been built yet. Golden East Mall certainly not even thought about yet, and so downtown Rocky Mount was the place to shop for most people, not only in Rocky Mount, but for the surrounding areas. I mean, even smaller towns like Nashville and Tarboro, for example, who also had a downtown section, a lot of those folks would come to Rocky Mount to shop because we did have such an expansive downtown compared to what they had, in their location there. So anyway, let's go ahead and lead to the next picture, and this is another one from 1949, and this was taken obviously at night or later in the afternoon anyway. It was almost dark. I'm not sure about that building in the background there. Something about this picture called out to me. I thought at first it may be the old Rocky Mount City Hall, and I see that. If you look in the middle of that building, it looks like a tower there, and I thought maybe that's the old firehouse tower, but then again, it didn't look to be in the right location to be the firehouse tower. And again, it's a little dark, and I'm just not sure, but that would be my guess, is this would be the City Hall Fire Department complex building there on Main Street. And again, we'd be looking roughly northeast here. And I'm not positive about that. This picture was not captured any other way than shopping downtown Rocky Mount in 1949. That truck there, when I was at my computer, I could zoom in on it and read that. I think it says North End Service Station, and I'm not sure whether it was North End of Church Street, North End of Main Street. I'm guessing perhaps Church Street. But in any case, again, these are all from 1949, at least these next two or three we're going to look at anyway. And I just thought it was neat. The lady, again, out shopping, seems to be finding everything she needs and happy to be out and about. Okay, Lee, let's go to the next one then. And this is another lady out shopping. Oh, you can see now clearly in this picture on the right-hand side of your screen there, back in the background, that is the firehouse tower there on the right-hand side of the screen with the bell tower at the top there. And I'm not sure who this lady is. She was not, in fact, none of these people were identified specifically in these pictures. They were just captioned as Christmas Shoppers 1949. Downtown Rocky Mount. You see Almond's Drugstore behind her there, and again across the railroad tracks over to your right there, you see the fire tower, bell tower for the fire department over there, and just beside that, of course, the old City of Rocky Mount utility building there, City Hall. And so, also, if you'll notice the parking meters out there on Main Street. That was something I hadn't thought about in many years, that there used to be parking meters downtown Rocky Mount. And I don't know when they took them up. Maybe somebody remembers that. And by the way, if you want to share a memory about your Christmas memories, Christmas past, or anything else, feel free to give us a call. 407-1111 is the number. And we're talking about Christmas and looking at images from Christmases past here in Rocky Mount. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead to the next one then. And I think this is actually another image of downtown Rocky Mount, and I'm not honestly sure where this is. That looks like it could be People's Bank in the bottom, in the left-hand corner of the screen. That car beside the lady there that's got some kind of dairy sign on the side. It's obviously some kind of advertising, promotional type thing on the side of the vehicle, but I was trying to figure out what it could be, and I kept coming up with Luther. It looks like a U-T-H-E-R, but I don't recall hearing about a Luther dairy in Rocky Mount. You make out the words, or part of the words, like it's seal test down just at the bottom of the door there on the side of the car. So I don't know, I've heard of a few different dairies that operated in Rocky Mount back in the 40s and 50s, but this is one I was not familiar with. If it is Lutheran, that could be something else entirely. Like I said, I couldn't make out the the entire name of the business there, but it looks like it's a U-T-H-E-R maybe, and it could be an A-T-H-E-R too, I suppose. But in any case, this is another one of those from 1949, and these are just folks that were out randomly Christmas shopping, and you know, Charlie was pretty good at depicting everyday life in a photograph. And I've said before, you know, to me the best pictures tell a story. Just by looking at the picture, you can imagine, you know, all that was going on, you know, this time of year, December in 1949, with downtown Rocky Mount again being the only shopping place for the most part to do any shopping in Rocky Mount. You know, things were hustle and bustle down there, and it stayed that way all the way through the month of December, people shopping. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead into the next one. I think this might be the last one in this 1949 collection. There you go. This young lady here has obviously been out shopping, got an armload, and I don't know if that's her car behind her or not, and I looked at that car quite steadily for quite a while trying to determine if it's what I think it is, and I do believe that's a 1949 Ford right there beside her. And so somebody was driving a brand new car out Christmas shopping in 1949. And you know, again, this is late in the evening, perhaps at just after dark, but you know, this time of year it could have been as, you know, early as 5:30 because it gets dark so early. But she's obviously been out Christmas shopping and got some goodies there, and this was making wrapping paper too, so she'll go home and wrap some presents, put them under the tree, and wait for Santa to come. All right, Lee, let's go to the next one if we could then. And this thing just made me chuckle out loud. This is a Christmas tree that someone put together out of plumbing pipe. And in 1940, this is 1950 by the way, excuse me, we're out of the 1940s now, this is 1950. I don't know where this was. It was not identified as anything other than Christmas decoration 1950. That's the way Charlie had captioned it. And so I'm guessing this is some kind of plumbing supply house perhaps. But in 1949 or 1950, I think this predates PVC, so this was probably either galvanized or copper piping. And you know, it makes an interesting Christmas tree to say the least. You know, hard to envision the idea of coming up with a Christmas tree from plumbing pipes and plumbing fixtures and so forth, but someone put together a tree. You can see also in the background on either side of the tree there's those floor radiators there. And you know, when I was going up through particularly early elementary school, over at Wilkinson School, we had these. I'm sure they had them over at Brownsville Elementary and Gorham and the other elementary schools too, for that matter. Even the senior high school, I think at some point had these too. The house we live in now, in fact, has these things. We don't use them. We've long ago stopped using those and have gone to a central heat and air conditioning system in our house, so we don't use radiators anymore, but we still have them, and they look very similar to these. So I thought for a minute this could be maybe some kind of school project, and it could have been, like I said, it wasn't identified, but it also could have been some kind of promotional display at a plumbing supply house here locally. I don't know, but it just kind of jumped out at it. I thought it was a neat picture. So, okay, Lee, let's go to our next one if we could. And this next picture, somebody was very creative here and come out with a Christmas display, and this was dated from 1950 also. And you see, this is someone's interpretation of the Santa Claus Railroad. I thought this was neat. And instead of the reindeer pulling the sleigh, the reindeer is tied to the back of the Santa Claus Railroad and being tugged along by the railroad. And Santa's engine there, or locomotive, looks to be a 55-gallon barrel on the end, on the side, I should say. And I'm not sure what the two box cars are made from, but I thought it was a neat Christmas display that someone, you know, come up with. And you see the SCRR for Santa Claus Railroad on the side. This was not identified by any particular residence or name or address or street or anything. It was just in a collection of 1950s Christmas decorations around Rocky Mount, and I just thought this was a neat one here. I tell you what, Lee, I just realized we're at time for our first commercial break. Bring it back to me. Plus, we've got a lot more pictures to share with you tonight, and when we come back, we're going to jump into some more pictures of Christmas and Christmas scenes around Rocky Mount. And we'll take your calls when we come back, so if you've got anything you want to talk about, feel free to give us a call. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
To your friends, if you're just tuning in, you're watching Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcox, and we're in a Christmas holiday spirit mood today. I don't know if you can see them, I doubt you can, but right in front of me are some of those absolutely gorgeous poinsettias you've ever seen. These things are brilliant red and green and little hints of yellow mixed in there too. There you go. But I love poinsettias, and these are real, by the way. I wasn't sure when I got here, but they are. They were sitting right in front of the table I'm sitting at here tonight, and they just make an absolutely gorgeous display here in the studio. So Merry Christmas from all of us at WHIG TV, and thank you so much for your patronage and your viewership. I've said before, this show to me is about you, the viewer. I enjoy hearing from you and sharing your memories with you, and if the pictures that we share with you each week bring back some memories or make you think about some days gone past, then to me, I'm satisfied. That's the whole point of what we do, is to kind of keep the memories alive. It's so easy to forget things from years gone by and the past, and so hopefully reviewing some of these pictures and talking about some things from years back will keep these things fresh in all our memories. So thanks again for watching. We appreciate you. All right, let's jump back in our pictures if we could, Lee. This next picture is from 1950 also, and a very prominent citizen lived in this residence. Some of you may recognize the home for those, and obviously some Christmas decorations up there. And this was on Church Street. I don't have an exact address, but this was the home of Dr. Tom Suter. That's right. His son, Tom Suter Jr., was a sports broadcaster for WRL-TV for many years, and a lot of folks may not realize that Tom Suter Jr. is from right here in Rocky Mount, and this was the home he grew up in, and it was captioned as the Dr. Tom Suter home on Church Street, 1950s. So again, I'm not exactly sure where this home was. I don't think it's still standing. I seem to recall having been told in the past that Dr. Suter's home had been torn down some years ago. So if anyone remembers this home, remembers where it was, let us know. 407-1111 is the number. But just a neat. Rocky Mount has had so many really neat families throughout its history, in fact. And we quite often, talk about the people who come from Rocky Mount and made it big, so to speak, or did well for themselves. And certainly we've had our share of celebrities and sports figures and politicians and people who really exceeded on a big level, in a lot of different fields and endeavors. But this was Dr. Suter's home on Church Street in the 1950s. Okay, Lee. This next picture is also from the 1950, and I just love this picture. Obviously the city lake, you see the power plant in the background there, the Christmas tree out in the middle, city lake, and you see the reflection of the lights of the power plant there in the lake. If you look to the extreme right, you can see the wastewater treatment plant. I'm sorry, not the wastewater treatment plant, the water treatment plant. That building is still there, by the way, but I'd seen this picture before, and I think, by the way, that's not a cloud in the sky up there. That's some kind of imperfection in the picture, I'm pretty sure anyway. I zoomed in on it to see, and it looked to me to be some kind of imperfection in the picture, as is the far left-hand side of the corner, upper left-hand corner of the screen there is also some kind of imperfection in the picture. But this is just typical Charlie Killebrew. Snapped this shot on the perfect angle. Perfect centered, up and down, left and right. It's just a beautiful picture. It would make a gorgeous wall hanging. But Christmas in 1950 at the City Lake, and again, that's the power plant in the background there, the City Lake in the foreground, and the water treatment plant off to the far right over there. And Christmas is in the air here in 1950, all around the City Lake. All right, Lee, let's go to the next one then. And this next picture is also from the 1950s. This was a private residence, obviously, and I do not know whose home this was. Not all these pictures did Charlie take the time to identify where he was at when the picture was taken, and I wish he had of, because I'd love to be able to go back to some of these homes, the ones that are still standing anyway, and just kind of step back in time. But this was a private residence, and it was just identified as Christmas decorations 1950. And you can see there, it's an old fireplace there, and across the front of the fireplace is a banner that reads Season's Greetings. There are dolls down there on the floor at the hearth at the base of the fireplace there. Stocking hung there just to the left of the fireplace. And that appears to be an old musket hanging above the fireplace. I would love to know the history about that gun and who owned this property and where this was. I have no idea, none whatsoever, and there was just not enough information there to kind of even venture a guess. But a snapshot back in time for sure. You see the rocking chair there to the left. I can just imagine, the kids and babies that were rocked to sleep in that chair. Obviously the house had kids at some point. And I'm not sure, there on the right-hand side on the floor, just to the right of the fireplace, there's a pot. My first thought was a chamber pot, but I thought, no, it wouldn't be a chamber pot there in the den beside the fireplace. I'm not sure exactly what was up with that pot, unless maybe they put water in it and stuck the pot there close to get the water boiled to bring some, in the past I've seen folks do something similar to kind of bring some moisture to the air, because the fireplace will tend to dry things out. So you put a pot of water there and, not hot enough to boil obviously, but close enough to generate a little bit of moisture in the air, and I'm guessing that's what it was. I don't know for sure, obviously, but just a neat picture here. Again, this is kind of a snapshot in time, and this picture was in that 1950s collection, and there were this whole collection really ran from about 1949 to 1964. But within each 2 or 3 year grouping of pictures, there was just a bunch. And so I went through and just pulled, certain pictures out of each grouping and brought them to the show tonight. So anyway, let's move right along, Lee, to the next picture if we could. And I thought this was neat for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's obviously somebody's front porch. They decorated their front porch for Christmas. And this is another one that Charlie did not identify other than to say Christmas decorations, 1950. Actually 1952. This one did have an actual date. Some of them just said 1950s. Others identified a specific year. This did say 1952. The railing on the porch there jumped out at me. It almost reminds me of a wagon wheel. It's obviously homemade. Someone took some time to put that together. I don't think it was part of the Christmas decorations, however. I think this was somebody's front porch. And I thought maybe somebody would recognize that front porch and how that railing was put together there. If this looks familiar to you, give us a call. 407-1111's the number. But you see they've got the big candles there on either side. Santa's in the middle there by the, I guess, wagon wheel, if you want to consider it a wagon wheel. And then there's a wreath up there hanging on the window. And like I said, I don't know where this was. These were all from Rocky Mount. And so somebody, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Yeah, it does look like that's kind of a permanent porch arrangement, because if you look at the other side, you can sort of see the same pattern.
Exactly.
Of the arches, but it also resembles a bit of a spider web.
It does indeed. I hadn't thought about that. You're right. It sure does.
If you go back to the picture before this with the fireplace and the season's greetings.
Sure. Go back. There you go. There it is.
If you take a look closely at the bookshelf arrangement on the left of the picture, I don't think that's real.
Really?
Look closely at the books on the second shelf. They don't go back.
I see what you're saying. They look like they're kind of...
Look at what looks like the beer stein above that. It just looks like a relief.
Yep.
And that cabinet over there just doesn't look like it's actually legitimate.
You're right. It does. I see that now. It doesn't look deep enough to be a cabinet. It sure doesn't.
And I can't tell about the one on the right, but that looks more genuine.
Yes, it does.
But the one on the left just doesn't look like it. It looked like, we'll call it an afterthought, perhaps.
Maybe so. Yeah, the whole picture just kind of captivated me. I kept looking at it. I'd zoom in and look at the different items that are in the picture, and I honestly didn't even think about looking at that closer on that shelf there. But I think you're right. I think that was probably either an afterthought or maybe just a representation of a shelf.
Yeah, or just you put there to sort of round out the picture.
Yep, could have been. Could have been.
Well, Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. Same to you. Thanks for calling. Bye-bye. Okay. Yeah, and that's entirely possible that some of these pictures were staged to some degree. And it's possible this was also some kind of stage inside a business. I can see, for example, someone who sold, this type furniture. You see the sofa there on the right-hand side. We mentioned the rocking chair on the left-hand side. This could have been some kind of fabricated display inside a furniture store, for example. Hard to say, fun to think about and discuss possibilities, but neat photograph nonetheless. And we'll thank Charlie Killebrew for putting it together for us. Okay, Lee, let's go back into our, you can go ahead then and go past the front, there you go, and go on to the next one if you would. And this is also from 1952. It's kind of hard to make out in this picture, but right in the middle there, there's a Christmas tree. And of course, it's curtained behind the Christmas tree, and they kind of all blend together. But I zoomed in on this thing, and one of the things that I was pretty confident in that this tree is wrapped up with tinsel. And that I mentioned earlier about the memories I had of as a child growing up in Christmas. We always had a live tree, number one, and we put tinsel on every tree that I remember having in our home. And that was always something that us kids got a chance to do with our parents, was hang tinsel on a tree. We'd be given one or two strands each, and we'd hang those and come back and be given one or two more strands. And so it's just something that you don't see much anymore. I don't think anybody even uses tinsel. I've not seen it for sale in some years, frankly, so I don't know if you can even buy tinsel anymore. But, and I don't know where this was either. This was someone's den, it looks like. It's kind of a plain room, but at the same time, they've got a tree there. And this was another one of Charlie's, just kind of a snapshot in time. And it was literally captioned, Christmas Tree, circa 1952. So, anyway, all right. So let's go ahead and lead into the next one if we could. And this is actually a window. And my first thought was it had to be a church. But when I read further down into the description of this picture, it was actually listed as the Edgemont School. And so we've talked about the Edgemont School many times in past shows, and there's a lot of history there, obviously. And then I thought about, those of you that are familiar with Smith's Red and White Grocery Store up there at Deutsch's, and Mr. Jimmy Womble comes up every year and paints the windows with Christmas scenes and nativity scenes and Santa Claus and so forth. This window was painted with a collection of Christmas, bottom right-hand corner, for example, there's Santa Claus. There's this, each pane or each grouping of panes there has tells a story, and it's neat. I don't know which window this was. I'm not even sure these windows, that building's been, I think I'm correct here. If I'm not, I'm sure someone will let me know, but I think this is the same building that is now the Judicial Center. It was Gorham School for a number of years, and then of course turned into the Rocky Mount Judicial Center. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Edgemont School was the same building, same school. But anyway, this is from 1952. It's a shame this is not in color. In later years, Charlie Killebrew did, I think, take some color pictures, but in 1952, all these pictures were black and white, of course. And I'd love to see what this looked like in color. I bet it was absolutely stunning, with all the different types of imagery there and the scenes that are being depicted. I can just imagine there's lots of colors involved in painting this glass here. But anyway, this was in obviously Christmas time, 1952, the Edgemont School. And I'm assuming there were probably more windows than just this one, but this is the only one that I found in the collection I'm looking at today. So, okay, Lee, well, let's go to the next one then if we could. And this next picture was just, this tradition of decorating trees out in the yard is something that does continue to the day. I see it from time to time riding around town, particularly at night. You see people who lit up trees in their yard. But I was looking at these bulbs, and this guy putting these bulbs on his tree, and I'm sure these are those great big old glass bulbs that got extremely hot. I mean, I've been burned by these Christmas bulbs in the past. I know how hot they get, but it's just a wonder that they didn't have more fires outside using these kind of bulbs on these trees outdoors, particularly in the wintertime where it tended to be, dry and, I just can imagine that there were quite a few fires. But in any case, this is a tradition that certainly, was being done in the 1950s and continues, as I said, to this day. I don't know where this was, either this gentleman nor his residence was identified in his photograph, but this was from 1952, and Charlie had just identified it as outdoor Christmas decorations, 1952. So, okay. All right, Lee, let's go then to our next one if we could. And this is actually, if you look at this picture closely, this is someone's screened-in porch. And that was neat because you think about outdoor trees literally being outside the home, out in the yard. Of course, you have indoor trees. But these folks had a Christmas tree inside their screened-in porch. And you can see the sliding patio door, it looks like there just to the right. If you look in the background, the right-hand side, you can see the actual screening. And there's one of those, like a woven bamboo kind of hanging vine, not vine, but a blind that is hanging there. And I guess you could roll that up if you wanted to let more light come into the screened-in porch area there. But, this old tree here, decorated it pretty good. It looks kind of not the best shaped tree I've ever seen, but it came together pretty good with the balls, and I see some tinsel on there. And so, again, I can't help but think about what a sight this would have been in color, if these pictures had been in color. It's a shame we don't have that capability. They weren't taken in color, obviously, but still, it's neat to look back at these old pictures and think about the time that it took to put the tree up and decorate it, and the sights and sounds and smells that were going on when this was being decorated. All right, Lee, I'll tell you what, bring it back to me. It's time for our next commercial break. Folks, we've got more pictures to share with you, and so when we come back from the break, we'll jump back into those. If you need to get a little bathroom break in, a little snack time break, now's the time to do that, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
We're back, folks. You're watching Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcox. We're talking about Christmas. And Merry Christmas to you, by the way. I want to give a shout out to a couple of folks who I know have been a little under the weather, and I hope they're feeling better. Alice Birchfield is one of our regular viewers, watches the show every week, and I just found out that she'd been in a hospital. I'm not sure if she's home or not. So, Alice, hope you're feeling better. Got a visit yesterday from Eric Dawson. He's been a little under the weather too. So, Eric, hope you're feeling better too. There's some creeping crud going around out here, folks, in addition to the COVID. So this is not COVID, but there's some just some icky mess going around, kind of combination stomach bug, head cold, just feeling yucky kind of stuff. So use your hand sanitizer, wash your hands frequently, wear your mask if you feel like it does you some good. But anyway, take care of yourselves and hope you can avoid the creeping crud that's going around. All righty, so again, tonight's show is all about Christmas. We started this last week, and I just thought it was something we just would carry on through this week's show. The difference is that all these pictures tonight I pulled from Charlie Killebrew's collection at the Wilson Library at UNC Chapel Hill. And you've heard me say before, that is just a phenomenal collection of photographs that Charlie took from a roughly 50-year time frame, from the 1940s up to about the 1970s or so, or later than that actually. But in any case, these are all actual photographs, and the beauty of that is, even though there are some imperfections in some of them, for the most part they're pretty much the original pictures, as opposed to being reproduced in a newspaper, and that tends to lead to a less quality photograph, more grainy, more blurry, more fuzzy, so to speak. And these photographs, you've heard me say before, you can zoom in on these things, and I mean the resolution is just phenomenal. And so it's just neat to look at these old pictures in their natural state, so to speak. So, okay, all right, let's jump back into it then. We've looked at yard trees and indoor trees and trees and screened-in porches. This next picture was just another tree that Charlie happened to be riding by, I guess, and thought was neat. I'll take a picture of. And so, okay, that's the last one we're looking at there in the screen porch. Here you go. This is someone's outdoor Christmas tree, 1952 is the way Charlie captioned it. And it's like a father and a daughter there decorating a tree. Don't know where this is, somewhere in Rocky Mount. Couple things that kind of jumped out at me. Number one, the stonework on the outside of this house is really neat. It's not brick, it's some kind of stonework. Even where he's standing there looks to be a stonework, some kind of work anyway, stone. And the windows on the house remind me very much of a house. Of course, a house is long gone. My aunt and uncle from Brattleboro lived in a home many years ago that had a crank-out window. I'm sure many of you remember what I'm talking about. You had a little hand crank inside, and you cranked it around, and the window would open up, and then you could crank it the other way, and the window would close back up again. And I think that's what these windows are here. And so you don't see these windows much anymore. I don't know of another house in Rocky Mount at the moment that's got them. I'm sure there probably are some, but I don't know of any off the top of my head. But just a neat old picture here. And again, this was from 1952. And Charlie had captioned this picture simply outside tree decoration. The stand that the tree is on, we had one just like it in my home growing up. Had a little cup there. The whole thing was metal, of course. Had a little cup you put water in, whatever, to keep the tree fresh, or at least attempt to keep it fresh. And the little girl doesn't seem to be quite as enthralled with the idea of decorating this Christmas tree as her dad does, but I don't know, maybe she'll get feeling better about it as time goes on. So, and this, by the way, this is 1952, if I hadn't already said that. All right, let's go ahead and lead to the next picture we could then. And this next picture is another shot of someone's den. And something about this picture right here, just to me anyway, speaks of affluence. I don't know anything about the owner. The home was not identified, neither was the owner. But looking at this picture, it just tells me that someone who lived here was a very affluent people. Could be a banking executive, could have been an attorney, could have been a doctor, could have been a politician. But you look at the picture above the fireplace there, with the ornate work in the frame of the picture, over with the Christmas tree picture there, another ornate picture, the candle sconce up there on the mantle, and that table there in front of the fireplace. That thing just looks expensive, beautiful Christmas tree too, obviously, with a few gifts under the tree there. But this was just identified as Christmas Den, 1952. And I'm assuming this was people that Charlie knew, or they were, at least he was invited to come into their home and take a picture of their den with the Christmas tree. And you look at this picture, and it just speaks to you. And so many of Charlie's pictures do that. They tell a story, and you can just imagine what was going on with this home before this picture was taken, and certainly after. But my first thought when I saw this picture, whoever lived here was well off. Even the molding, look at the top of the room, at the wall there, the crown molding. I mean, this was a very finely crafted residence, obviously. The ornate work around the fireplace, carpeted floor. Carpeting wasn't unheard of in 1952, obviously. It'd been around for several years, in fact. But still, to me, this image just speaks of someone who was used to the finer things in life. Let's put it that way. So, okay, Lee, let's go ahead then. Rocky Mount has, over the years, taken a lot of ribbon about their Christmas decorations. There have been years where they were plentiful, and other years where they were not so plentiful, and some years they were really nice and ornate, other years not so much. But in 1952, these gentlemen here were tasked with getting the Christmas decorations organized and getting ready to be put up on the telephone poles throughout the city, or certainly up and down Main Street, I should say. And so I don't remember this particular style of Christmas decoration. Obviously, I wasn't around in 1952, before my time. And I don't know, because I know they reuse these things from time to time. The reason I bring this up, because somewhere I envision in a warehouse somewhere there very well may be these same decorations in storage. And wouldn't it be neat to stumble across that treasure trove of old Christmas decorations from the city of Rocky Mount in years gone by? These look to me to be hand painted. I don't know that they were, but I'm just guessing. But in any case, let's go to the next picture, because the next picture shows this particular decoration being mounted up on a telephone pole, or utility pole. And there you go, you see again those fluted poles. And I don't have a recollection of those fluted utility poles on Main Street. I don't know when they were taken down or when they ceased to be in use. But that's, the last one I think was from 1949. So we know from 49 to 52 anyway, they were still being used. And you can see the decoration there. It's, Christmas scene, and you see Santa in a sled and being pulled by the reindeer above the house there. But in any case, it's neat to think about these things because, as I said, probably somewhere in a city warehouse there are 60 or 70 years of Christmas decorations that have just been stuck in a corner somewhere. And what a treasure trove to find and bring those back out, if it's even possible. I don't know if it is or not. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead then to the next picture. And this is another one from 1952, and it's actually, 1953. This was actually the JC Toy Drive, and I think we may have seen this picture last week, but if we did, it was from the newspaper, and obviously not as clear as this picture here. But, I don't know if the JCs were still involved in this. I don't know when they stopped doing this, but this was a fairly big event. I remember reading in the newspaper about this JC Toy Drive. They collected toys, new toys, used toys. They repaired toys, repaired bicycles, and they would, just fix up toys. And they made sure that, kids who were likely to not have anything for Christmas under the Christmas tree would get something. It may be a simple item or one or two simple items, but the intent there was to make sure that every child had something to get from Santa Claus on Christmas morning when they awoke. And so it's just a neat thing that the JCs did. I don't know if this is even being done now by any group locally, but good-hearted people that were involved in these efforts to make sure these kids didn't get forgotten on Christmas. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead to the next one if we could then. And this is another one. We mentioned about the Rocky Mountain City Christmas decorations. This is actually from 1961, and I do recall seeing this garland type decoration being used before. This is one they have used a few times over the years. And so they're, I guess, just dragging it out now and unrolling it and getting ready to get it up on the pole and hanging across the streets there. But, there's, like I said, somewhere I'm sure there's a whole bunch of this stuff that some of it has been used in probably 50, 60, 70 years or more. And it would be neat to try to do some research. If anyone's got any contacts in the city and could kind of do a little research into this and see if we can find out what happened to the old Christmas decorations. I, for one, would be curious to know if the city still has them, number one, and number two, what they plan to do with them. Okay? All right, Lee, let's go on to the next one if we could then. And this is from 1961. And there you go. You can see the garland is up there. And you see the Main Street. This is on obviously the the west side of Main Street, looking south, I do believe. Looking north. This is the west side of Main Street, looking north, I do believe. And hard to make out in this picture, but I think, Lee, see if you can zoom in on this thing a little bit. A couple things that caught my eye when I was looking at this picture earlier, and I'm not sure we can recreate them here or not. And I'm more particularly interested on the right-hand side of the screen. I mentioned earlier about the old Rocky Mountain City Hall utility building and the firehouse. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this caller. Hello, caller. You on the air?
Hey, Randy. How you doing? This is Randy.
Yeah, man. Good. Good to see you. Good to hear from you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I see that railroad tower up there, man. You just put the gates down up there. You remember that?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I was hoping somebody would call in and talk about that because we've talked about them in prior shows. Tell me what you remember about that tower.
Well, I don't know how many men's been up there, but I know one guy, his last name was Mangum, Mr. Mangum. I don't know his first name. He used to put the gates down when trains were coming.
Uh-huh.
And he used to kind of look over the stores in Rocky Mountain and kind of report something to the police if he sees something kind of suspicious, too, you know.
Uh-huh.
And, but I would just really want to call, Randy. I know you're going to be showing some more pictures, but when you first come on, you were talking about memories of Christmas.
Yeah.
I said right there and told my wife, just before you said anything, you know, I said, I remember Mom used to have that living room. It used to be cold, formal living room, door shut, and when I opened the door, it smelled tangerines and oranges and apples because she always had a shoebox full of oranges and apples and tangerines and nuts. Yep. I said, and every time I smell an orange, I think of that living room. And it won't probably 2 minutes. You sit right there and said the same thing about the shoe boxes and fruit in there.
And you know, I forgot about the tangerines, but yeah, we had tangerines too. We sure did. Yeah.
I love the old tangerines because they were easy to peel.
Yeah, buddy, they sure were.
well, look, like I say, that's the old railroad tower. He used to put the gates down when he sees trains coming or radio trains was coming, you know. But,
there you go. There you go.
I don't know what year it was taken down, but I remember it was up there. Mr. Mangum, he used to do it for years and years. But look, I know you got some more pictures to go, and I appreciate your show. Enjoy your show, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, buddy. Same to you, Randy. Take care, buddy.
All right, take care.
We'll see you. Bye-bye. All right. Yeah, I wanted to kind of point out the tower number 1, and that is the train station bell tower. I'm sorry, not train station, fire station bell tower on the right-hand side. And so, you know, there's 2 things here that are no longer here. The tower there, the caller mentioned, is no longer there, obviously. And the old City Hall building and the fire station, bell tower and all that's long gone. And you notice the railroad track there, it's about, you know, about at ground level, so you could literally walk right across now. It's quite a bit different now, obviously. But of course, 60, 70 years have gone by since then. Well, 60 anyway. This is 1961, so things have obviously changed. I thought it was neat that there does not seem to be the same amount of Christmas decorations on the right-hand side of the street as there are on the left. I don't quite understand that, but maybe they were just putting them up and hadn't got over there yet. Who knows? All right, Lee, let's go. We've got 1 or 2 more we can try to get in before we run out of time here. Let's go to the next one real quick. And this is actually Santa Claus Land by the railroad track. And that was the way, well, Santa by the railroad track is the way Charlie had captioned this picture here, Santa by the railroad track. Don't know where this was. Obviously the railroad track to your left over there, and Santa standing by the track waving. Again, this was not identified as being anywhere in particular. It just said Santa by the railroad track, and this picture was dated 1962. Okay, Lee, I've got 2 more. Let's do them real quick and we'll call it a night. There you go. There's one from 1964, and really neat picture there. It's a little dark, but you see the star in the middle and the garland. I mean, just really neat decorations there. See Epstein's there on the right. So again, this picture, you're standing on the east side of Main Street looking north. You see People's Bank there on your right. Love these old pictures of downtown Rocky Mount, really do. And finally, Lee, let's take a quick the last picture here. This is the 1964 Rocky Mount Senior High Knocker staff, and it's called the Christmas Shop. They had a Christmas shop, and you see they're selling wreaths there. And the thing that jumped out at me about this picture more than anything else was that gentleman holding a cigarette in his hand. Now, I don't know if this was held in Rocky Mount Senior High at the school or some kind of facility outside the school, but can you even imagine the uproar that would take place today if a school administrator was to be caught in public with a cigarette in his hand? It just made me laugh out loud to think about what kind of grief the fellow would get if this were a modern day time. All right, folks, Lee, bring it back to me. Folks, we have run slam out of time for tonight's show. I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's been my pleasure to be with you, and I truly wish all of you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'll be here next week too, by the way, but until then, take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, folks, and we'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.